Okay, guys, we're moving on, and it is Thursday. Once again, I've already said that in one of today's videos, but it is Thursday, and we're still working on point of view. I asked my live class this morning, what is the number one mistake we make when determining if a text is told from first or third person point of view? Okay, so think about that for a minute. The mistake that we often make is that we look and find the word I, me, my inside of dialogue, and we immediately jump on it and say, I found the word I, it's first person, and it was in dialogue, and it might actually be in third person. So make sure that after you've read the text, you go back and you mark out all of dialogue so that you don't get confused on that. Okay, we are working on point of view again today, and we will know that we have got it if we can compare and contrast two stories that are told from different points of view and be able to talk about the different characteristics that they have because of the point of view. Okay. Like I said, remember, and I added this from our anchor chart yesterday. I got a picture of Trump down there. Because remember, our biggest tip on point of view is that if you see a first person pronoun outside of dialogue, it trumps any third person pronouns. So on the Mastery Connect quiz, there was one that it in the very first sentence, it had first person words and third person words. Well, some of you have asked me before, what do I do if they're first and third? Well, first always trumps third person words. Okay, they're key words. Okay, and they just have more meaning behind them. Okay, so we are talking about point of view today, and I took this picture of Ellis just the other day, and I just thought, what a wonderful illustration of what point of view is. From Ellis's point of view, he has become a little old man. He's put on a mustache, and he walked around with a golf club acting like it was a cane. And, from his point of view, he had really turned into a little old man. From my point of view, I see my child playing. So point of view is really just the way you see things from your eyes. Another example of Ellis with his point of view is my parents have this tree, and it's on a little bit of a slope up a hill, but not much. But he calls that the hill, And when he wants to take twigs or branches, he says, let's take it to the hill. And he thinks it's this gigantic hill when, as a little kid, it might seem really big to him. But to me, it's just, pretty much still just the yard. But to him, it seems so much bigger. So that's from his point of view. Okay. So let's go ahead and get started with our two texts this morning. The first is called Trick or Treat. And I'm going to go ahead and read. And as I read, I'm going to highlight any words that I see that are first person. And I'm going to cross out any dialogue so that I do not get confused, okay? All right, so it says, Terry hid his face behind his science book so no one would see him laugh. If everybody knew that if Terry chuckled when no one else was laughing, someone was about to get pranked. His current target was Mr. Mason, his teacher. Terry had a rubber spider on Mr. Mason's chair and couldn't wait to see what happened when his teacher sat down. Good morning, class, said Mr. Mason as he breezed into the room. Let's all get started, shall we? He added. And see, there's the word we. And some of you would have seen that and said that's a first person word, but it's in dialogue. Let's all get started, shall we? He added, grabbing his science book. He pulled his chair out and got ready to sit. Unable to help himself, Terry let out a squeaky snicker. Mr. Mason froze. Terry, is there something you need to tell me? Okay, some of you would have said me is a first person word, but it's in dialogue. No, Mr. Mason, Terry answered, but the huge smile on his face told the truth. Mr. Mason leaned over and looked at the seat of his chair. There, right in the middle, was a big black spider. Mr. Mason snatched up the rubber spider and walked over to Terry's desk. Terry, your pranks are getting tiresome, Mr. Mason said sternly. The other students nodded in agreement. At first, Terry's pranks had been funny, but nobody could remember a day when he hadn't played a trick on someone in the class. I need you to go sit in the hall for 10 minutes to think about how your victims feel about your pranks. Now, thank goodness I marked out that dialogue because there's the word I again. Terry left class and sat against the wall in the hallway. His smile was gone, but he didn't actually feel sorry. Mostly he was disappointed that Mr. Mason had figured out his prank before he sat down. Terry had really wanted to see Mr. Mason's reaction. A few minutes later, the classroom door opened. "You can come back in now, Terry," said Mr. Mason. Terry hopped up and walked back to his desk. "All right, let's get back to business," Mr. Mason continued. "Did all of you remember to bring your permission slips for the field trip to the ice cream factory tomorrow?" Terry's eyes widened. Field trip? Ice cream factory? He didn't remember ever hearing about this, but all around him his classmates were reaching into their desk and pulling out permission slips. "Mr. Mason, I don't have my permission slip," Terry wailed. He couldn't believe he was going to miss such a great trip. "How does it feel to be pranked, Terry?" teased Mr. Mason, grinning. Terry realized there was no field trip. He heaved a sigh of relief. "It felt awful, Mr. Mason," he answered. Suddenly, Terry realized that he was getting tired of his pranks, too. Okay, so his teacher ends up pranking him. Let's go back to the first paragraph and just make sure that we didn't see any first-person words and that we do see lots of third-person words. So Terry hid his face. No one would see him. Everybody knew that if Terry chuckled when no one else was laughing, someone's being about a prank. Mr. Mason, if I go to the dialogue, said Mr. Mason. He added. He asked. Terry answered. So nowhere do I have I said or I answered. Okay. All right. Let's look at our next text. Okay. This one is called Putting It Off. Okay. And the first paragraph starts with dialogue. So I am going to mark out dialogue as I read. Okay. "Come sit with me so I can help you study for your test, Serena," called Mom. I rolled my eyes because after all, it was a whole week before the big math test, and I didn't feel like studying anything yet. Okay, so what are my first person words? I rolled my eyes. After all, it was a whole week before the big math test, and I didn't feel like studying anything yet. So I've already determined that this one is told from first, and the other text is told from third. Okay, let's go ahead and read, and then I'll stop the video and we'll start on our questions. "Mom," I wailed. "Can I finish watching the show on the Science Channel first? It's educational and absolutely fascinating. Plus, if I study now, I'll just forget everything before next week's test." Mom sighed. "Go ahead and finish your program, I guess, but I won't be able to help you study after dinner." "That's okay, Mom. I'll just study alone later before bedtime." She gave me a look that showed she suspected I didn't intend to study today. I wish she understood that I do my best work at the last minute. Once again, I relaxed on the couch. Truthfully, only half my attention was focused on the Science Channel program. Peeling stickers from a sheet and positioning them artfully on the cover of my math notebook seemed far more interesting, and it was a lot more entertaining than studying for sure. Once I'd arranged the cover stickers the way I wanted, I put my notebook and stickers away and went to the kitchen to have dinner. Macaroni and cheese, my favorite. Shortly after that, it was time for bed, but naturally I hadn't studied. Why would I, if the test was an entire week away? The next morning, I sauntered into math class, well rested and refreshed, but everyone else looked sleepy and tense. "What's going on?" I asked my friend Megan. "Why is everybody looking so tired?" "I stayed up till almost 10 studying for the test," said Megan. "Didn't you?" It's next week, right?" I started to feel a little nervous. "Serena, don't you remember? Mr. Gordon changed the day of the test from next Friday to this Friday. You didn't study at all?" Megan looked at me wide-eyed as I sank into my assigned seat. If only I'd let Mom help me study last night, I might have had the chance at passing the test. Never, never again will you catch me procrastinating before a big test. The next time, I promise I won't wait until the last minute. So what does it mean to procrastinate? It means to wait till the last minute. Okay, we'll go ahead and stop the video there, and then you can go on to the next one. I'm going to do it in short segments so that it'll upload to YouTube faster.